Hi, welcome to Nutritional Medicine by Lab Analysis. I'm Dr. Cyrus Thomas. I've been a chiropractic physician for some 34 years now. We're doing a combined show tonight. We're combining my show, Nutritional Medicine by Lab Analysis, with the program Chronic Ailments and Nutrition. And you are?
Hi, I'm Janari Iman. I'm a clinical nutritionist. I have a practice in San Rafael, and I often work with Dr. Thomas on cases, and so we're colleagues, and I'm happy to be here.
So we're going to talk about gluten tonight. Gluten is the subject, and if you think that I don't have gluten sensitivity, well, watch this program, and you may change your mind. So, what is the big thing about gluten?
The largest thing about gluten is the fact that it's an undigestible prolamine, which is a type of protein that causes a lot of havoc in the digestive tract. Now, you may or may not have symptoms, but gluten is the thing in wheat that makes bread sticky. And most of our wheat nowadays, which is quite different in the days from our ancestors, has been hybrided to make more gluten. And it's in so many hybridized. Yeah, thank you for saying that correctly. And so we're exposed to more and more gluten than we ever have as a nation.
But if only 0.4% of the population has celiac disease, or 0.04, it's very small, why are we worried?
Well, I think we're worried because it's a very undiagnosed illness.
So is it possible we have symptoms and don't realize it?
A lot of us don't even have symptoms and we still have celiac, or we have gluten sensitivity.
Or we have fatigue.
Because there's so many things that it looks like symptom-wise could be something else, including leaky gut and, Crohn's and things like that. So
we're estimating 3 million Americans have celiac, but only 1 in 4,700 get diagnosed, so that's pretty bad. 15 to 20 million may be gluten sensitive or intolerant. Well,
but look at the cost of the tests. Often it takes up to $1,700 to $2,700 in testing per year to get to the bottom. Oh, all your tests look normal, but we finally figured this out. Maybe all of a sudden you got a stool test, or you got tested for antibodies, and there was a lot of inflammation going on. So, hey, we finally got to the bottom of it, and we got to the bottom of your pocketbook as well.
So some of the symptoms of gluten sensitivity are stomach pain, vomiting, reflux, constipation, loose stools, bloating or gas, itchy skin, dermatitis, piriformis, or no symptoms at all.
Exactly. Now there's the real catch. But don't some of those symptoms you just listed sound like something else, even including the simple stomach flu? And especially when you have kids, and they're constantly getting sick, it's something you have to look at, because most people are gluten sensitive and not full-blown celiac.
What are the symptoms of celiac?
So if you have celiac, you're probably going to have these symptoms, which are intermittent, explosive type of diarrhea. Your stools smell funny or foul. You have a definite abdominal pain and cramping, often after eating, or within a certain amount of time, 1 or 2 hours after eating. And some people with celiac still may have no symptoms at all, because they think, oh, this is what I always get when I eat, a sandwich from this one particular deli, or oh, I have a stomach ache, but I'm stressed out today, so maybe that's it, or I drank too much coffee, or whatever it is. They don't make an association to the actual symptoms. So
let me add that if people are wondering, do I have gluten sensitivity, or do I have celiac, or IBS, or ulcerative colitis, watch other programs where we delineate the difference between those. We do a differential diagnosis on those. You can get our web addresses at the end of this program and go there, and you'll be able to see the different programs we've done on those diseases in particular.
Correct.
So what is gluten?
So there's a little picture here, and it's probably going to be too small for you to see, but it's inside the wheat kernel. And it is a mixture of proteins that are in the endosperm, which is that center part of the grain right there. And that part's rich in arginine, prolines, glutamine, and asparagine. which are amino acids. And these amino acids are really, really hard for some people to digest. In fact, most people, some people who don't even know it. So we have two subfractions, two categories, and most of all of the research has been done on the prolamine called gliadin, okay, and that's the one in wheat.
Right, so a lot of people think that if you have a gliadin sensitivity, then you have a gluten sensitivity, but not necessarily. Because you can have a sensitivity to gluten, get inflammation in the intestine, and you may not have formed antibodies against those prolamines.
Right. Thus, you had no symptoms, yet you're tearing your gut apart and you're working towards other types of inflammation, because we also know that inflammation is the root of all disease. So here, we just broke this down for you real quick.
So wheat gluten, we have gliadin is the prolamine. In rye, there is sacchalanin. In barley, there is hordein. In oat, there is avenin. In sorghum, millet, and what is teff?
Teff is a type of wheat. It's an ancient grain that has had less hybridization than other grains of wheat.
So
it's a safer.
Kefirins are the prolamine there, and in corn they have zein. So you're saying to stay away from all of these?
I'm not necessarily saying that, because if you eat teff, for instance, you probably you're going to have a less inflammatory reaction. If you eat oats, you're probably going to have less of an inflammatory reaction. People like all that bran in the oats.
So we're going to save the question, should people be eating grains for near the end of the show? And if you do want to eat grains, which ones should you eat?
Exactly, because one of the things we want to point out is that all grains have prolamines, and they're all hard on the digestive tract. And so if you have any kind of weakness in your digestive ability whatsoever, you are compromising your nutritional intake of food. And in fact, these are just going to start wiping out your minerals and vitamins, and some people will become very malabsorbent, to these nutrients. And we also end up developing allergies because they keep you from digesting other foods correctly. So we want to give you a list.
You want to avoid barley, bulgur wheat, couscous, malt or malt extracts, oats. In a laboratory when they want to make a dog sick to do testing with it for new meds or whatever, they feed it oats for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it is in really bad shape. We've been feeding animals cereals now for decades from Purina. It's been a mistake all along.
And the vets are making a lot of money because they're getting a lot of kidney stone.
People are spending $1,000 to $10,000 on their pets now.
Yeah.
And yet they won't spend the money on themselves to get nutrient care.
Well, they won't spend the money on good food for their pets either, because if you look at the first ingredient on the labels, they're often wheat, corn, other things, gluten.
Rice might not be too bad, though.
Yeah.
Should avoid rye, soy sauces, semolina, spelt, triticale, and wheat. Well, what else is there to eat then?
Well, we got a few substitutes for you. And if you eat these in small amounts, and especially if you sprout them, you're getting rid of a lot of these lectins that are harmful, and some of these prolamines get pre-digested in that sprouting process. But there's amaranth, which is an ancient grain. Buckwheat has no gliadin. So we're really on this line, we're talking about no gluten, okay? And we gave you the list before of what the prolamines were in these. So highlighted in these orange type here between the green are the easiest ones on the digestive system, which are nut and nut flours, oats that are processed, unprocessed around wheat, quinoa, and rice. Okay, and especially rice is the most digestible. There's soy, and then there's the little teff grain there. Okay, it is a type of ancient grain that resembles wheat, but it does not have the gliadin. And then bean flours. Those are the garbanzo bean flours, like Indian food. They're made with lots of bean flours. So,
but we've listed corn here, and yet corn can be a big GMO problem.
Well, 70% of all corn is genetically modified. So if you want to take that chance and you don't mind that, then you can go there with it. But just know that that's one added issue to corn that creates a lot of allergies, and it's in everything. It's a ubiquitous item because of corn syrup as well. So there's a lot of people with allergies and digestive sensitivities to corn. So just want to look at all these things and be really aware of them.
Actually, Nixon put through the corn syrup thing so
Yeah.
that food of price would come down and the price of food would
yeah.
not be an issue in his
Right.
campaign.
Yeah.
So a gluten-free diet excludes foods containing gluten. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, including kamut and spelt, barley, rye, malts, and triticale. Gluten often is used as a food additive in the form of a flavoring, stabilizing, or thickening agent, often as dextrin.
So when you see something on a food label and it says dextrin on it, beware. Just, let your little antenna go up. Ah, that could be a form of gluten. And gluten is used, even extra gluten is added to bread. And so this harmless little thing, if you were looking at this and it was a gluten-free little pile of bread there, it would be easier on you.
However, and it would look the same.
It would look exactly the same. So therefore, it's very confusing because we look at this as, our daily bread, our health, this wonderful grain growing in the field. And it looks so healthy.
Well, we didn't make a slide about it, but, we've only been eating grains and legumes and beans, for 6,000 years, which is a quarter inch out of a mile. And most geneticists agree.
On a chart.
On a chart. Most geneticists agree that we haven't had enough time to adapt genetically to the eating of grains and legumes, but more on that later.
Okay. So this is something that we have to be aware of because we want to talk about now what did happen to our grains. And you bring up the point of our ancestors and how we adapted to farming and agriculture and feeding ourselves with grains. But why wasn't it such an issue then as it is now?
Well, the reason is because we've got a staggering 500-fold increase in the gluten content of modern day grains.
That's right, because of that hybridization process that we
And they wanted to hybridize the gluten to be greater. Why?
Because it makes your bread softer. So there's
so
separate
you can rise
flours.
it faster and get it out faster. Wonder bread.
If you're going to talk about Wonder Bread, that's another issue. It's usually made in 7 to 10 minutes. Okay, now what I wanted to address before that is that when your great-grandparents made bread, they had to grind the grain, then they mixed it with they had the yeast,
And over and over again, rise, descend, rise, descend.
Well, at least twice, yeah.
Twice?
And so during that, at least twice, maybe 3 times on some breads. But during that process, a lot of these glutens were being consumed by the yeast, and then the yeast was being consumed and used up. And so we had these loaves of bread that really were more digestible because these grains were almost pre-digested in that sense. And now we have conditioned dough, we have fast-rising yeast, we have, a big bag of stuff that goes into a mixer, and it goes through an oven, and it's done in 7 to 10 minutes. And it has more gluten in it, and none of that gluten has had time to reprocess itself. And so now we're seeing an epidemic.
So if you've just joined us, my name is Dr. Cyrus Thomas. We're combining 2 shows tonight. My show, Nutritional Meds by Nutritional Analysis, and Janara Iman's show, Chronic Ailments and
Scientific Nutrition.
And Scientific Nutrition. What can I eat if I'm staying gluten-free?
Well, you can eat quite a few things other than grains, and you can add the gluten-free grains we were talking about.
And the diet allows for rice, corn, soy, potato, tapioca, beans, sorghum, quinoa, millet, buckwheat, arrowroot, amaranth, teff, montina, and nut flours.
And the good news is...
Those are tree nut flours.
Tree nut flours. That you can almost find these in all your local grocery stores now. When I first started working with people that had a gluten sensitivity, as I work with a lot of allergies as well, we had to teach them how to make their own food, and it was such a hard, hassle for a lot of busy people.
Yeah, I just saw gluten-free Bisquick the other day, but you know what? I still don't trust it. So I buy my gluten-free food at different places. What places have we got available?
Well,
glutenfreemall.com?
And bobsredmill.com. But back to that topic, that because of the gluten in so many things that there is a 242% rise in people who are needing to buy, in the amount of money that people are spending on gluten products. So, you know, make them a condiment, make them a part of your diet, but, you know,
What do you mean there's a 240?
242% more in the amount of money spent. So if your wallet...
Really, 2.5 times more money is being spent on
grains that are gluten-free.
That are gluten-free.
That's 242%.
So it's a big market now. It's not just a fad.
No, you're not getting my point exactly. Okay, let me rephrase that just so everybody gets it. Okay, the cost of gluten-free dieting and eating is 242% higher than not.
So it's going to cost you more to eat this way.
It will. And if you're a grain addicted person, you're going to find that in order to maintain your health, gluten-free, you're going to be spending a lot more money.
I think that'll come down in time.
It will come down in time, but it's such an epidemic in the Midwest now that accountants are finding, yeah, you can write it off on your taxes like a medical expense, a certain percentage of it. So that's how prevalent this is, and that's how important it is to really look at other ways to supplement yourself.
And we have some great foods here. Coconut for coconut oil, asparagus, a nice vegetable. Raspberries, strawberries, blackberries make a great dessert without being too sweet, especially
these
with
are your antioxidants.
Especially with some heavy cream. And of course, wild salmon is phenomenal for omega-3s.
And so what we're looking at is these are whole foods, and we're going to talk about a lot of that. Eating whole foods the way nature made them is the best way to truly eat. Okay. So anyway, there's a couple places online that you can get food, and then
So Sans Gluten is a place on B Street, between 3rd and 2nd in San Rafael. Marissa and Philip running that. It's a great little store. You can get all kinds of ideas on what you can buy that is gluten-free and actually look at it on the counter rather than going online and looking at pictures.
From what I understand, Marissa and Philip are both gluten sensitive, and so everything in their store is catered to a celiac or a gluten sensitive person.
Right, and of course sans means
no gluten.
Without in Latin or French.
So they've done a great service to the community right here in Marin County by opening up their shop. So go ahead, honey, it's gluten-free.
So a lot of information on this page. What we're saying essentially is that the government has decided how much gluten has to be in something before they even have to list it. So you could be extremely gluten sensitive and it won't be listed on the package that there's gluten in it. And those people always have to call the companies to find out if they can buy it. That's celiac. The rest of us could tolerate a little bit of gluten, but not too much. Maybe as much as, and that's going to be, it doesn't have to be listed till there's 20 parts per million, but we could tolerate as much as 10 milligrams of gluten per day.
And that's a very small amount, actually, considering if you're celiac or gluten sensitive and you go into a restaurant and you order a gluten-free pizza, let's say, and then they throw that pizza dough right on the same board as they had just made a gluten pizza. That tiny bit of gluten is enough to throw somebody a celiac off.
That's not 10 grams, that's 10 milligrams.
That's we're talking milligrams. Okay,
right,
that's
so
a small amount. I mean, that's how your vitamins are measured. That's a small amount.
That's 10% of 1%.
Yeah, that's very small.
83% of the adult population develops observable gut inflammation after eating gluten. Now, this is one of the most important tests to me that there is, because essentially what it says is you take a group of random people, you give them some gluten, you put a scope down them, and you take a look at the intestines to see what happens, and you see that 83% of the adult population shows to a camera observable inflammation. So when I read that, I said, chances are I could be one of those 83%.
And so could I, and so could everybody.
Right.
Here's what happens.
So what you do is you get rid of gluten, you see how you feel.
It's a very easy way to do it. I mean, give it up for a week, and there's a lot of, we just talked about a lot of ways you can have gluten-free grains to substitute. Give it a shot.
Only 30% make a wheat gluten antibody in the body.
And
the rest of us won't make it.
Exactly. And so here's a picture of the villi in your intestines. And so we were talking about earlier that it just sands these guys down. It's this constant rubbing and tearing down of the villi in the intestines, which
the little fingerlets that absorb the food.
The little fingerlets that absorb food and help you nourish your body. And then on top of that, we begin to build up this great carbohydrate sludge, you know, because if you mix flour and water, it's almost like getting glue. And so that kind of glue sticks inside of these little
now you have
villi.
biofilm.
Now you have biofilm, and you have irritation to the villi in your intestines, and these guys don't get repaired. They're impossible to get. We can clean out the crud, but we can't get rid of that.
Okay.
And
we're going to have to move along. We're running out of time. We've got more to say.
Well, because we want to talk about the inflammation part.
Yep.
And that's really key. So you may have an inflammatory condition to this and not even have symptoms. And so we have a test. We have a simple test, and Cyrus Thomas and both I use in our office to test for inflammation. It takes 10 minutes, and the body will tell you whether it's under stress or not, because for the most part, we can tell just by inflammation and then a little bit of diet assessment. Perhaps you have a cause here, and we can help you with that. The test is called a Medioxy test, and it takes, like I said, only about 10 minutes. It measures a urinary malinaldehyde, and it's very, very inexpensive and valuable.
So why do we do blood tests? Why do we do hair analysis?
Well, we do all this because we want to see what's going on chemically with you, biologically.
Yeah, we're actually looking at all the organ systems in the
bet
body.
we are.
And we're looking in a big way. If we were to simply test for vitamins, or just only minerals, or just for gluten antibodies, we might miss what the big picture is about what's going on in the body.
We might have a huge picture, and a lot of it could have come from inflammation from your diet. But what we want to do is we want to see exactly where it's affecting, because, you know, we all know about our genes, but what most people don't know is their epigenetics, and that is the markers that you're turning off and on because of inflammation.
Right,
and
so by the way we eat, and by the supplements that we take, and by the types of medicines that we choose,
and your environmental
we're actually controlling our genes.
We're controlling our genes. We're turning those.
So a lot of people say they feel fatigued when they're in this range or this range, so we use a more narrow range. So we want our patients to be in here.
We want yes, we want to be at the top of our health in our labs.
Well,
here we go.
If you got a diet that's about 65% grains, plants by weight, 35% meat and oils by weight, essentially what you have is the way the Pacific Islanders ate for a long, long time. You also have the way animals, even ruminants, and early man ate for millions of years. The cell is 2 billion years old. And the big problem is really when you take really good foods and you mix them with this, I'm going to say crappy noodles and pasta
very medical term.
Made by dough. Made out of dough. White flour. What happens when you mix white flour with all these good foods?
Well, what happens is you impair your digestive, you know, the whole process.
And people need coaching to be able to get off of these, because why? They're full of opioids.
Yeah, and that slows down the digestive tract as well.
That slows things down, right?
It really does. So if we stick with carbohydrates that are in their whole food form, now grains, even whole grains, are not in their whole food form. We don't go out in the field and pick it right off the, you know, and then eat it right off the stalk. No, we don't do that. We have to process it.
By the way, if there's anybody watching that likes to eat rice raw, don't do it. There are 4 toxins in it that need to be denatured by cooking. So anyway, what is Z-gluten?
Z-gluten is a professional product. There's a couple other companies that have them, but not as complete as this one, because not only will it take and enzymatically begin to remove some of that sludge that we were looking at, that we saw that's built up, but it will pre-digest those prolamines.
So this is for people who say, I can't give up my grains, I'm addicted. They can take a Z gluten with the meal, and it will help them.
It will. Okay. No. I don't think that it should be encouraged that you know a gluten-sensitive person continues to eat wheat. But one of the things you can do if you think if you think that you're exposed to it, carry that around with you. If you're in a restaurant and you're celiac, definitely carry it around with you. But if you think you've been exposed at all to any of these grains, use it for that, and use it if you've ever eaten the gluten, because it will help you get and eliminate out of the intestines the buildup of the undigested prolamines that remain in there that actually begin to create a buildup of those histamine reactions that cause the inflammation.
So we're saying that nutrients are smart medicine. You get labs, you know how well you're doing, you do nutrition as your form of medicine, and you get healthy. We'd like to thank the people of Community Media Center of Marin. If you want to do a show, you can come down here. We need more people to be involved with the studio here. And it's a great group of folks. This show will air every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And it'll be in your position as well.
Saturday at 2:30.
Saturdays at 2:30. I'd like to thank especially Brad Flaherty for helping us in the control room today. Any last thoughts on? I'll put this page on because this is your website address, Janara, and mine up top. That's the office where we both have offices. Any last thoughts on why people should get a test?
I think testing is really the only way we know for sure chemically what's going on with you and on a cellular level. That's where we really need to heal. And we can find so much information out if we're reading the test correctly.
And whether their lipid profile is off or their liver is off, you're going to make some changes with their diet to make those corrections. I'm going to do the same things.
Yes.
A hair analysis is wonderful to find out about heavy metals. Heavy metals act similar to free radicals. They get in the way.
Not only that, they disrupt hormone receptors. And so if you've got endocrine issues, that's another thing to look at.
Yeah. And of course, the endocrine glands make the hormones that are the messengers in the blood. So it's like the nervous system, but only a little bit slower. My number, Janara's number, our two websites. Go there, you'll find shows. We both have YouTube channels too. So you can find out, you can watch programs. You can watch about 40 programs on our two websites on thyroid issues. There's just no end to it. Alzheimer's, anxiety, concentration, all of that. Yeah. Thanks for watching the program. Thanks for being on, Janara.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good night. Vita's in. Vita, where'd you come from?
What do you mean, where did I come from?
Hi.
We got to remember to close that door next time we can see you. But hear you guys having fun.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Vita.
Hey.
How you doing? How you doing?
How could I miss you?
How's King Kong?
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, you don't know yet.
I'm lost.
Don't worry, he is too.
Oh, funny.
So that looked good.
Did it look good? Okay.
It looked good.
Yeah, we're gonna join the two shows and see if Megan will show them both in our slots.
Okay. And are you gonna do a second show? Oh my God, you could do a second show on gluten.
Yeah, it's huge.
I know, it's huge. It's like you barely touched the surface. So
I know. I feel like we barely touched the
What I
surface.
kind of want to do is post these on both our sites and then watch the number of viewers and seeing if actually they do want the interactive. Wolpert thought, no problem with the shows. Don't worry about the shows. Don't put any attention there.
Mm-hmm. What was he thinking?
Social networking.
It's all social.
Yeah, just get them to the site. They'll see you're an authority. Then make the phone call.
How's he going to get him to the site? What was
Well,
his
that's his
suggestion?
whole spiel with Twitter and Facebook, and then you get advanced levels combining. Your Facebook becomes your Twitter becomes your Facebook. They both go to your Google thing, and the whole thing. And then every day you just go in for 15 minutes. You take care of you. You gift the world, and when they need somebody to
I've
call,
heard that 100 times. That's a, being